Major support for these broadcasts is provided by the CUNY TV Foundation, New York Community Bank, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's window company, Capital One Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Geneva Burns, Gian Tomasi and Webster, M&T Bank, the Wyckoff Group, Chelsea Lighting, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional support is provided by Ackman Ziff Real Estate, AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi, USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Colliers International, NYC, Cushman and Wakefield, DDG, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Eastern Union Funding, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Herrick Feinstein LLP, Hersha Hospitality Trust, Investors Bank, New Banks, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Centurion Holdings, John Katsimatidis, Red Apple Group, Margolin Weiner and Evans, Madison Realty Capital, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, People's United Bank, Popular Community Bank, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, Urban American, and these friends.
So some people, like your host, collect suspenders, but there are people who collect trinkets or Fabergé eggs or cufflinks or snuff bottles. But there are people who've been collecting since the start of time. And today I have the collector's collector, the principal with his brother and his nephew of La Vieille Russie, a store in the Sherry, Netherlands, founded in 1851. Peter Schaffer, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So tell me about La Vieille Russie.
Well, we were founded in 1851 in Kiev, as you know, and we've always been dealing in Russian art and Russian history.
It was written up in an antique magazine, other thing. To be a collector, you have to be a little crazy, is what you said?
No, sick.
Sick. What do you mean?
We have to be sicker than our clients. We don't have to be. We are sicker than our clients.
Now, collecting has been there from the beginning of time, you said, right?
Correct.
People were collecting what?
Well,
Wives?
in prehistoric times, if somebody had a leather thong with a shell or something or other on it, and then they added something else, and then you had these big necklaces with all sorts of charms and things on it. That's the second oldest profession, please.
Okay. So let's talk about 1851, about the store, when they opened up in Kiev.
We had, when the Soviet Union opened up or collapsed and then we were able to look, it seems we had 2 shops in Kiev and oddly enough, both in hotels, and we're in hotel now.
And what you sell, what they sell in 1851?
Well, they were still selling, they were not selling Fabergé and things of that sort, but they were selling chalices and silver and church vestments and things of that nature.
Tapestries?
Icons.
Tapestries?
Yeah.
Talk to me about your dad, because your dad really brought the company to America.
Correct.
He was born where?
He was born in Uzhgorod, which is in the Ukraine, which is south of Kiev. It's a part of the country that is musical countries.
How he came over to America? Because he played soccer and he didn't want to go into the military. You know?
Well, he played professional soccer in Hungary because at that particular point, Uzhgorod was Ungvar, and it changed names back and forth. And he didn't want to, when it became Russia again, he didn't want to be in the Russian army, so he swam out.
So he swam out. He arrives in America when?
No, he swam out and he went to Kiev, where he found the rest of the family and got involved in buying and selling.
So he was buying and selling. But you told me a story that he originally started his buying and selling in chocolate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as a kid, in order to get a little extra pocket money, he would buy a box of chocolates, and he would sell the kids in the school the chocolates for probably double what he paid on a per chocolate basis. And it's a living.
So when does he come over to America?
He got here, I think it was in 1926, and got to Kiev in 21.
So he's in Kiev in 21. He's in the Russian tapestry, the chalices, and other things. So how do you arrive here in 1926?
We left Russia ahead of the communists taking over as they were moving further west. And then when Adolf Hitler decided that he was going to move further west and was coming into Paris, because after the revolution we left Russia, we went to Paris. Then we came from there, and we had some help getting visas and stuff like that in order to be able to get here. And I think he came through Canada.
So where does he reside originally? On the west side, you told me, correct? The family moved originally to West End Avenue or something?
West 76th Street.
West 76th Street. And so he's here. How old is he when?
Oh, his first house, by the way, his first apartment was 110th Street facing the park.
Good location.
Yeah.
He's here. How old is he when he arrives in America?
26.
He's 26. And how does he meet this this Hunter College graduate?
You mean my mother?
Of course, your mother. Tell me.
He was on the subway. My mother was going to a music class with a cousin, and my father happened to know the cousin. So they stopped to talk. The rest is history. And I'm proof.
You? But you're the second child. Okay.
I'm the second.
You're the second child. But what happens is your father is working at this time trading, because he's always been a trader.
That's right. He wanted to reestablish the name and reputation of la Vieille Russie. He was Russian Imperial Treasures before he set up in business.
Now, in order to go into business, the American-born mother of yours makes a deal with your father, right? There's a financial transaction. What was the transaction?
She lent him $800.
And she said?
Well, they were already married by that time, so it wasn't a quid pro quo.
Right, okay. But she said, if I'm lending you the money?
Oh, she worked very, very much
But
with
she went into the business.
Absolutely.
So your mother went in, even though she was a college graduate, she had...
She was a professor at Hunter College.
Right, but she goes into the business.
Yeah.
So it's what year? So now what year is this when they go into business?
Well, la Vieille Russie was formed as a corporation in 1941.
So it's 1941. Your brother is born before 1941.
That's
your brother Paul, and your parents at this time are living still on the west side.
No, Great Neck. I think I was 3 months old when they moved to Great Neck.
I didn't talk. I was talking about your brother. So your brother was first. Okay.
Brother was first. Someplace in Queens.
Right, okay. But what you did say to me is it's very interesting that when he opened up, he had a location, but he was one of the original tenants in Rockefeller Center.
Correct.
Which building originally? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
So he opens up in this
I
new...
wasn't there.
Okay, I know you weren't there, but in this newly created city, because it was the early 30s,
Yeah.
1936, I believe, when Rockefeller Center opens, and he's there. Subsequently, we will go on. You're born. You live in Great Neck. And tell me about your youth.
I am the consummate New Yorker. I was born at 58th Street and Lexington Avenue. It was a tiny hospital called Wickersham, I was told. I was almost born in a taxi cab because I was told that my mother had false labors. They said,
But your mother was probably trying to trade something at that time.
That's right, absolutely.
Okay, she was trying to sell some, you know, trinket or something like that.
Absolutely she was, absolutely she was.
And then you grew up in Great Neck. Tell me about growing up in Great Neck.
We went to a school called Les Coquelicots, which was part of a school for UN kids, which was out at Lake Success then. And it wasn't until we were about 7 that we learned to speak English. Our first language was French, primarily because it was the only language with Russian, French, Hungarian, etc. in the household. It was the only language that everybody spoke.
So growing up, did you work in the establishment?
I started in 1957, working Saturdays. Of course, it wasn't so glamorous like talking to you, you know, sweeping the floors.
You were sweeping floors, but always collecting. But was that at that time? When did they move to Fifth Avenue?
They moved. They were in 55th Street. I think it was in 1941 already that they moved.
So they moved to Fifth Avenue. Originally, they moved to 785 Fifth Avenue.
Correct. Right up the block.
Right up the block. And tell me what happens that you moved to the Sherry Netherland. How'd that happen? You told me your father.
My father was very friendly with the guy who was going to be building that block. And he wanted the block, and he used to go to the racetrack with my father, and he said, come, and he put us into the Sherry Netherland, which was basically his hotel at the time. I think he had about 17% or something of that.
So you've been in the Sherry Netherland since?
50 some odd years and 70 some odd years on that block.
So where'd you go to college?
I went first to Carnegie Tech, which is now Carnegie Mellon.
Right, because you wanted to be an actor or an entertainer. Or
I wanted to direct.
I want to be a celebrity.
Yeah, produce and direct musical comedies.
What happened then?
Then I came back to New York, and I realized, you know, I'm still on stage in the store.
So you went to Columbia, correct?
I went to Columbia, yes.
And what did you study over there?
I studied theater, and I studied painting, and things of that nature, painting, sculpture.
So when you graduated college, did you immediately go into the store, or did you go to, you went to Paris, you went to Europe? Didn't you say, like, to learn?
One good thing that our parents did is they would not let either of us come into the business until we were out doing things in the world. And we each had a 6-month stint. After we decided we wanted to come into the business, we had a 6-month stint in Europe with different places. And we were given a certain sum to be able to buy, and we were told, you can't ask us a thing. If you need more money, you can get it. It was like another college education, really.
Now, the interesting thing is, because you've been into so much in the Russian art and other products over the year, talk to me about how your dad and the late Arm and Hammer got involved with this little thing called the Fabergé products, which you became an expert on, and you wrote a book about it. You're the major contributing author in a book called The Golden Years of Fabergé, drawings and objects from the Wickstrom workshop.
You're a businessman. You understand business. There are 3 things that are important in business: quantity, quality, and price. And on one of the trips when my father went back, Fabergé, since he died in 1920, the stuff was, you know, secondhand used stuff. There was wonderful quality, tremendous quantity available, and the price. I don't want to tell you some of the prices.
So your dad and Arm and Hammer both purchased a large quantity of Fabergé.
That's right.
And you kept the Fabergé in the store, and you sold and you traded it.
That's right.
Okay. Now, when we got together, you were talking about the difference between your store and an auction house. Explain to me what the difference is.
Well, bottom line is we thank somebody for a purchase. We don't charge them extra for it. But we're bankers for the wealthy. You don't always have to be wealthy because you can buy on time. You have to have a love for what you're buying. But we do the selecting, like a banker selects varying products and tells people what to buy, and that's our business. In an auction house, they're putting the wares out there, and it's more buyer beware. They put a description and stuff like that, but that's it.
Was your store and your dad and yourself and your brother very involved in selling all these Fabergé products to the late Malcolm Forbes?
Normally, we wouldn't say anything, but he said in print,
And I know that.
yeah, that that over 80% of his collection came from us. And when he was selling, we bought about 100 pieces. We just didn't have another 100 million left over to buy the rest.
So who buys Fabergé today? Well, the type of people. I mean, because in the 20s and 30s, there's been written that many, King Farouk and some other people, dukes and duchesses, would come into the shop to purchase.
It's not so different. It's not so different. They're not always kings, dukes, and duchesses, but they're generally speaking fairly well-to-do people. The thing is, you have to have it hit you in the solar plexus, and you never know who's gonna come in and just fall in love and want to have. But that's the customer we want.
As you said in a number of articles and before, you have to be crazy to be in this business to collect. Why? Why do you feel that way?
Well, I've often said that we're sicker than our clients. Collecting is an addiction. It's more of a benign addiction. But we need our fix every day or every other day in buying. It's not quite, shooting up. And a collector needs it once a month.
How do you get products today? Where do they come from? I mean, do old estates? I mean, people.
A lot of things. We're very fortunate to be able to buy back things that we've sold. That's our biggest source of merchandise.
Why, people come to you for this? They know that you'll buy back?
Yeah, yeah.
Do people buy on time?
Sure, sure.
So so are you, you're like holding credit for certain people?
Yeah, yeah. The thing about collecting is don't buy 10 of something. Buy one at slightly more than the whole 10 cost, and if you have to put it down so much a month, so be it, but buy the best thing that you can possibly buy. It's not a question of collecting quantity. It's collecting quality.
Now, your brother is in the business and your nephew are in the business.
That's right.
What are the roles of each one of you in the business today?
We don't really have defined roles.
But if you had
I deal mostly more with the Fabergé jewelry. My brother is more with the objects and the snuff boxes and things like that, also the Fabergé. And Mark, always obviously dealing in the Fabergé and jewelry, but his great interest is paintings.
How'd Mark get into the business? I mean, Mark has his PhD
in plant biology, correct. Again, my brother followed our father's lead. He had to go out and do, and then decide that he wanted to come in. Because he wouldn't stay in if you had to try and force him.
Do you think the next generation of Schaffers will join this business? Mark's...
I hope so. I mean, we've already got 5 generations. I think we've beat an awful lot of firms when it comes to that.
So in today's world, we were talking about what's the big item besides Fabergé? You said to me a number of years ago, cufflinks were nothing, there are different products, snuff boxes, what do you?
Snuff boxes is a case in point. Cufflinks is definitely a case in point. They go in and out of fashion, and the thing is you have to love what you're buying, because there are two colors of blue Sèvres porcelain, French porcelain, and for a long time the very dark blue was what was in, and nobody wants the dark blue today. They want the light blue. So if you're buying what you want, that's wonderful. But if you're buying purely and simply for investment, you have a bit of a problem.
How do you protect yourself from buying the wrong item?
We've bought wrong items. We've certainly made mistakes. They're teaching tools, the mistakes that you make.
Now, you travel around the world to different shows and some programs. Tell me about these shows and these different programs in New York and Paris and other places.
Well, we do 4 shows a year in Maastricht in Holland, and we do the show in Masterpiece in London, and then we do 2 shows here in New York.
And what do you mean by you do these shows? Tell me.
These are antique shows where you have jewelers and painting people, furniture people, all together.
And so people buy from you over there at
Yeah.
the shows.
We have a couple clients who buy from us at the opening of the Armory every single year, the show at the Armory. And they live halfway between the shop and the Armory. They've never, ever been in the shop.
Now, the interesting thing is, everybody knows the Sherry Netherland, besides the fact that it's an iconic hotel and building over there, it's near the Apple Store. And you were saying to me when we got together, it's a very interesting thing that some of your customers, when they come in there, the kids go to the Apple Store.
Yeah, yeah. We had one client who always used to tell his kids, all right, now we're going to Daddy's toy store.
It is their toy store.
Yeah.
It is their toy store. The interesting thing is when I got together with you at the toy store, as we would say, even though it's a block from FAO Schwartz, the other type of toy store, a couple of people walk in. I mean, who walks into the store normally? I mean, New York City is the home of, 51 million visitors a year. Are these people walking in because they know about the store, or are they walking in because it's unique, because you really don't have things in the window?
We are fairly well known, I would think. And we have people coming in saying, they've heard about us, they're in New York for the first time, they wanted to see us. That's one of the reasons we do the shows, by the way, is because we can be open and friendly with the people and get to know them. We can have people walk in torn blue jeans, and they can buy an imperial egg if we had one, just as easily as somebody wearing suspenders.
Or braces, as
Braces.
we know. But I mean, if somebody walked in, what are the prices? I mean, how low can somebody? Somebody wants to become a collector today, and they don't have money to buy Fabergé eggs or other Fabergé products. How expensive? What does it cost to become a collector today? I mean, can somebody young become a collector who's not an investment banker or somebody like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we love people who come in and they love the pieces. It's not just, we had somebody come in and say, oh, my decorator told me I needed glasses, I'll take that shelf. That's no fun. She eventually learned and understood what it was that she had. But that's not the way to buy. And you can buy things. We used to have things in the $50 to $100 range. Inflation has changed that. I would say $400 or $500 maybe, something like that.
So how do you decide to write the book? I mean, the majority of this book. What was the
The impetus was really quite simple. We were able to get a hold of the Wigstrom album, which were drawings of the pieces done after the pieces were finished. So we spent some time putting the album in good shape, and we did an exhibition and the book as a result of that.
So who would you say today purchases this book? People who are interested in Fabergé products, or people who want to learn about collecting?
There are people who buy just the books, you know, who buy every book on Fabergé that's ever been written. You can't always absolutely trust a book or a catalog or something like that. You have to look at a number of pieces and trust your nose.
As you said, collecting it changes. Has the products that have been collected 50 years ago when you went into the business, is it different today?
In the jewelry field, yes, you're dealing in much more modern things. Pieces in the 60s and 70s are being purchased now. And oddly enough, I never thought I would live to see Fabergé and Russian enamel things 100 years old. They are now. So, you know, time keeps going on. It makes it easier for customs because it's over 100.
Okay, what about art?
Paintings?
Paintings. Do you sell that?
Icons used to be the thing, which was the only art form allowed in Russia until sort of the 19th century. Some in the 18th century already. And there are even people who are collecting some of the hidden Soviet artists and bringing very good constructivists and things like that. They're bringing good money. We don't have any because we don't really understand it.
Now, you were saying you're in the 5th generation, and there might be the 6th generation. You mentioned to me Mark's son.
Mark has a sister who has 2 kids who might, and I'm hoping that Kathy comes into the business too.
So, you know, it's interesting that as both of us have stated, it's really hard to have 3rd generation, 4th generation, but a 5th generation, and it's really good that your father, you know, was able to swim out of Russia and to come over here, meeting that interesting woman, your mother, who lent him money to continue a great history, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you.